Sleepovers are typically filled with joy and camaraderie among friends, offering a chance to unwind and share laughs. Yet, there are moments when these nights spiral into eerie and frightening experiences. This collection unpacks unsettling tales of sleepovers that transformed from harmless fun into haunting memories, reminding us that sometimes the night holds unexpected dangers. When I was a teenager, I had an experience as a babysitter that still haunts me today. I often babysat for my neighbor across the street, Alice, almost every weekend, so we were quite comfortable with each other and had a solid routine. Rarely, Alice would host a sleepover, and this particular night was one of those times. Jennifer, a first-time sleepover guest, was a bit nervous, but I did my best to keep her at ease. Alice's parents went to bed around 6:30 p.m., setting the alarm before they left. After bathing both girls and settling them in front of the collodion, I went into the kitchen to grab snacks. It was pouring rain outside, and adjacent to the kitchen was a breakfast nook with glass doors and a wall of windows. As I turned to head back, the phone rang. Since Alice's parents called frequently, I always answered. I picked up and asked who it was. A male voice greeted me. "Hi, how are you?" "Hi, I'm fine," I replied. I asked if he was calling for Jason, Alice's father. He wasn't home, but I could take a message. "Maybe I'm calling to talk to you," the man said. I didn't get a bad feeling yet, and thought it was just a family member or friend looking to chat. Politely but quickly, I told him I had to go. The girls were calling me to bring their snacks, then hung up. I returned to the girls with their snacks and was about to relax in the recliner when the phone rang again. Without thinking much, I answered. The man started, "You know it's rude to hang up on people, don't you?" Though thunder and rain made it hard to hear, the girls calling me scared of the storm distracted me too. I apologized and said I had to get back to them, then hung up before hearing his full reply. Then the phone rang once more. "Don't hang up on me," he said, this time with anger. Despite my fear rising, I hung up again and went back to the girls. The phone continued ringing repeatedly. Alice begged me not to leave her side, so I refused to answer. After almost 10 minutes, the phone rang yet again, and I thought it might be Alice's parents. As I approached it hesitantly, he screamed, "You expletive, don't hang up on me. Leave me alone. If you call again, I'll call the cops." Curious, I shouted back, "You psycho," and hung up. Turning around, I found Alice and Jennifer standing behind me, terrified. I tried to distract them by offering ice cream bars, but as I reached into the freezer, the phone rang again. Alice answered this time. I couldn't catch what the man said, but I heard screaming, and Alice looked absolutely terrified. I grabbed the phone, ready to confront him, when he said chillingly, "That's a nice pink shirt you're wearing." I realized then I was wearing a pink shirt, and during the earlier call, there was a clap of thunder heard both on the line and inside the house simultaneously. Suddenly, clarity hit me. A threat was nearby, not just on the phone. Though I was a teenager who considered myself invincible, a heightened sense of awareness took over. I flipped the kitchen light off, knowing it controlled most of the nearby lights. Then, I whisked the girls and the barking dog, Alex, into the pantry. The pantry door opened inward, and I shoved a heavy bag of rice against it, bracing myself against the shelves, holding the girls' mouths to keep them quiet. Alex, though barking, somehow knew to stay silent. Suddenly, the alarm blared, the thunderstorm rumbled, the phone rang incessantly, and all of us trembled in fear. I fought back tears for the girls' sake. Time dragged on until a woman's voice called from outside the pantry, announcing herself as a police officer and saying it was safe to come out. She slid her badge under the door. I inched forward, verified the badge, and cautiously led the girls out, shielding them behind me. Officer Wesley wasn't alarmed. She explained that alarms going off like that were scary, but we should have answered the phone to inform the alarm company all was well, avoiding unnecessary police calls. I stammered that we hadn't triggered the alarm ourselves. She looked puzzled and then said, "Then who made those muddy footprints from the backyard sliding glass door near the kitchen to the pantry and out the front door?" Outside, muddy footprints marked where someone had paced outside the pantry door and left through the front door, which was still open. I was hysterical as the police called Alice's parents to return from the restaurant. When they arrived, I noticed they seemed less terrified than I expected. The officer's partner revealed the door in the nook had been pried open, and a trail of footprints started from the yard, leading to the glass door. The police escorted me home and informed my parents. They were deeply upset, and officers patrolled the neighborhood for weeks, but never found the intruder. From then on, I never babysat for Alice again. The fear was too great. Years later, Jason, Alice's father, went to prison, not for tax evasion as initially said, but for drug running. When I met him once during a visit, he bragged about his past dealings and how he'd been caught fleeing police in a high-speed chase. I realized then that the person calling the night likely sought revenge against Jason, maybe a rival dealer or someone Jason crossed. I am certain that by grace and an alarm system, we survived that night. That experience instilled in me a sober understanding of mortality and the darkness that can inhabit others. While I'm not paranoid, I am cautious. A lesson learned at night, one that changed me forever. When I was in high school, I had two close friends, Lisa and Zoe. Lisa came from a wealthy family, and her enormous house sat right next to our high school. It quickly became our favorite hangout spot, especially during breaks and weekends when we often had sleepovers there. One night, Lisa, Zoe, Lisa's little sister Anna, and I decided to spend the night. Our usual plan was to change into pajamas and watch scary movies, which set a thrilling mood for the evening. Anna went to bed early, leaving the three of us in the living room. Suddenly, the house alarm sounded. It wasn't unusual for it to happen occasionally, since the house was nestled deep within the forest. The alarm system was specifically tuned to only trigger with human movement, so we thought little of it the first time Lisa turned it off. However, when it went off again just 10 minutes later, fear crept into us. We went upstairs to check around the house, opening windows and stepping onto the balcony to look for anything unusual in the surrounding garden and woods. Despite our search, nothing appeared out of place. At one point, when I was alone on the balcony, the alarm blared again, and the automatic lights around the swimming pool turned on. Since I was just above the pool, that signaled someone was nearby. Terrified, I dropped to my knees and stayed still until Zoe managed to switch off the alarm and lights. I ran back inside to the safety of the house. By then, our anxiety had grown. We switched off all the lights to avoid drawing attention and huddled together in the kitchen with no phones, though I'm still unsure why we left them behind. The windows surrounded us, leaving us feeling exposed in the dark, sizable home. The alarm blared repeatedly, causing Anna to scream. Lisa comforted her and went upstairs to deactivate the alarm once and for all. Zoe and I remained downstairs, tense and alert. Suddenly, we heard fast footsteps right outside, on the other side of a wall near the garden. It was clear whoever it was knew their way around. We froze, our hearts pounding. Then, a shadowy figure passed just outside a window and door in front of us. He carried a light, and another light illuminated his silhouette. We could tell there were at least 2 people moving stealthily around the house for what felt like half an hour. The sliding door near the kitchen had Venetian blinds, but one set was broken, leaving a gap. While we sat frozen in fear, Zoe and I were blinded by a sudden, intense light shining directly into our faces from outside. We were paralyzed, unable to scream or even speak, trapped by terror. We heard loud pounding on the front door. In a sudden moment of bravery, I crawled over and held the door shut with all my strength, despite my small frame. The person on the other side was trying relentlessly to force the door open, hitting it violently. Zoe remained frozen beside me while upstairs. The other girls waited in fear. This harrowing ordeal lasted what felt like hours, but in reality, only a few tense moments passed. Eventually, the pounding stopped. The alarm quieted, and the lights flickered off. Zoe and I stayed awake in the kitchen, and the 2 sisters remained upstairs. The terrifying night ended. The next day, when Lisa and Anna's mother returned, we told her everything. She was furious that we hadn't called the police. She quickly contacted the authorities, who inspected the property. They found muddy footprints around the house and marks on the front door, signs that someone had clearly tried to break in. The police surmised that these intruders were simply scouting the house to see if it was worth robbing, as the neighborhood was known for its large, expensive homes. What we will never understand is why the intruders suddenly tried to force their way in once they realized we were inside. Why didn't they leave when they saw us? The moment they spotted us standing in the kitchen, they became aggressive, trying desperately to break in. Whether their intentions were robbery or something more sinister, we will likely never know. I never spent another night at Lisa's house. The fear was too consuming. Lisa seemed frustrated, not fully grasping how deeply shaken I was, especially since she hadn't witnessed the intruders herself. But for me, that fearful night among the towering trees left a lasting mark, a reminder that danger can suddenly lurk where we least expect it. When I was about 10 years old, I went for a sleepover at my cousin's house. We spent the afternoon swapping Goosebumps books and listening to the 3 investigators, those mystery stories that were much more popular in Germany than in America. Before it got dark, her mom gave us $10 to buy snacks at a nearby supermarket. The store was located near a big intersection, surrounded by chain supermarkets and department stores, and people usually drove to get there. As we crossed the road to head back to the quiet residential area, my cousin suddenly became visibly uneasy. She pointed out a tall man in a yellow t-shirt who seemed to be following us. Unless he lived nearby, a slim chance, there was no reason for him to be there. She explained that she had seen him inside the supermarket too, and now he was trailing behind us across the street. Her panic was palpable, urging me to walk faster. At first, I thought she was overreacting. After all, we both love spooky stories, and perhaps her imagination was getting the better of her. But the man quickened his pace, continuing to follow us down several streets until we finally reached her house. The moment we rang the doorbell, he abruptly changed direction and disappeared. That night, as we lay in bed, she whispered anxiously, "Now he knows where I live. What if he comes back tonight?" I replied with my usual naive confidence, "And does what? Murder us? Why would someone do that? He doesn't even know us." Though I dismissed her fears at the time, I now realize she was being cautious, not paranoid. Her instincts were proving right, even if I, as a child, struggled to grasp the gravity of the situation. When I was about 8 years old, my sister and I lived in a modest little house we called the Shack, a place our mother moved us into after splitting up with our father. We shared a small bedroom, but one part of the house stood out: the large backyard with an above-ground pool and a deck surrounded by a tall privacy fence. Being a curious child, I often climbed a wooden plank on the fence to chat with the two little boys who lived kitty-corner to us. They attended my school, so I quickly befriended them. Their Uncle Randy, a man likely in his 20s or 30s, often worked in their backyard, and we'd talk to him regularly. Back then, Randy seemed like a nice guy. He was always friendly during our fence-side conversations. But looking back, there were red flags I now recognize. I remember once when he accidentally threw a basketball over our fence. When we offered to retrieve it, he insisted on climbing over himself, and he did so with surprising ease. At the time, I thought nothing of it, but now I suspect he was testing how quickly he could scale that fence. One day, my sister casually mentioned that our mom worked the night shift, leaving us alone in the house during those hours. That seemed to spark something in Randy. Not long after, I woke up to the sound of my sister crying. We shared a bunk bed, and when I stood up, I found her leaning against the wall, trembling and on the phone. Although she told me everything was fine and urged me to go back to sleep, the next day I learned the disturbing truth. In the middle of the night, while our mom was at work, Randy had jumped the fence and tried to break inside our house. He banged on my sister's bedroom window, demanding that she let him in. She refused, but he wouldn't relent, walking around the entire house, pounding on the windows, yelling at her to open the doors. It was terrifying. Eventually, she called 911, waking me up in the process, though somehow I slept through all the noise. When the police arrived, Randy was gone, having quickly jumped back over the fence to his own yard. Despite their efforts, the officers could do little because he denied the accusations, and there was no concrete evidence. This incident shook us deeply. Since Mom couldn't change her work schedule, my sister started staying at our grandfather's house during the nights. For a while, we hoped the nightmare was over. I stopped talking to the boys next door, and things seemed calm, until it happened again years later. My sister, now older, was having a sleepover with friends one night. Our backyard has a sliding glass door with vertical blinds, but one of those blinds was broken, leaving a gap. Suddenly, one of her friends pointed out a man standing outside, staring through that gap. It was Randy again, pressing his face against the glass, silently watching them. Everyone freaked out and called the police, but once again, despite eyewitness descriptions and the fact that Randy was wearing the same clothes when officers questioned him, there was no proof of wrongdoing. That was the last straw. We moved out of that house and secured a restraining order against him. He never showed up to court, so the judge granted it automatically. I haven't seen him since, and last I heard, he was in prison for unrelated charges. Looking back, I realize how much that reckless neighbor shaped my understanding of trust and safety. What started as innocent interactions quickly descended into fear, teaching us the hard lesson that danger can sometimes hide right next door. I'm in my 20s now, and recently my partner asked me about my cousin, since they'd only met briefly. I shared some fun childhood stories and tried to find the right words to describe her personality. One of the first things that came to mind was that she seemed paranoid. But then I paused and asked myself why I thought that, and suddenly I remembered a childhood memory I had completely forgotten. I was around 10, and she was about 12. I went to her house for a sleepover. We spent the early afternoon exchanging Goosebumps books and listening to The Three Investigators, which is more popular here in Germany than in America. Later, we decided to get snacks for a movie we wanted to watch on TV. Her mom, my aunt, gave us $10, which felt like so much money as a kid, and sent us off to a nearby supermarket before it got dark. The area she lived in was near a major intersection outside the city, surrounded by big chain supermarkets and department stores. People mostly came there by car. We bought our candy, then started crossing the main road to return to the quiet residential neighborhood. That's when my cousin noticed a tall man wearing a yellow t-shirt following us across the street. Unless he lived in one of the few houses around, a slim chance, he had no reason to be there. She told me she had seen him inside the store and that he had followed us across the street. Panic flared in her voice as she urged me to walk faster. I complied, even though I thought she was overreacting. After all, we were always reading spooky stories, and I figured her imagination was probably working overtime. But the man matched our pace, keeping up with us down several streets until we reached her house and rang the doorbell. Once there, he quickly changed direction and disappeared. As a very naive kid, all I had ever been warned about was stranger danger. Never get into a car with someone offering candy. I wasn't worried at all and didn't see why my cousin was so terrified. That night, lying in bed, she said quietly, "Now he knows where I live. I'm so scared. What if he comes again tonight?" I tried to shrug it off with, "And does what? Murder us? Why would someone do that? He doesn't even know us." At the time, I completely forgot the whole incident. I thought my cousin was just a bit paranoid, and I guess she thought I was naive. But now, thinking back, I understand better why her instincts must have been screaming at her, and how important it was that she listened. While sleepovers are often associated with fun, joy, and the comfort of close friendships, these stories reveal how quickly a night meant for laughter can turn into harrowing experiences. They remind us that safety is never guaranteed, and trust should always be given with caution. Each of these unsettling nights highlights the crucial importance of staying aware of our surroundings and being vigilant about the people we allow into our lives. These memories serve not only as chilling tales, but also as valuable lessons about caution, self-protection, and the unpredictable nature of danger lurking just beneath the surface of familiarity. If these chilling sleepover stories captivated you, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with your friends to spread awareness and keep everyone safe.